Hey, cunts, don't forget to click the subscribe button.
This is a current superstar in the making. Chinese, French, Canadian. Doesn't look Chinese, but Josh doesn't look Korean, does he? And we're gonna, one of the keys to keeping your board is keeping them in the loop from an information point of view. And when you lose, and everybody in this room is going to lose a board member, either because they tell you to fuck off or you tell them to fuck off, one or the other. And thank you, Edward. And I developed more than 50 years ago a methodology that I copied. Again, I didn't copy it from Carnegie, but I copied it from my military experience when I was a young officer with NATO in the 60s. And the report that you get, the weekly report that you should use daily that you're going to get, is a derivative of my report that I used to give as a young officer in NATO. And it's online. A version of the report that you get is online under United States Army, USRA, NATO, / government / something. So it is. And the report says basically, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do tomorrow? And what problems? Now they replace it with challenges, which I think is funny. That's the difference between 50 years ago and now. There were problems before, but now they're challenges. Because you're giving that report to yourself, and the board members don't want to be inundated with that much information, so I say you give them weekly to bi-monthly reports. And the easiest way to do it, or not the easiest way, the 21st century way to do it is by a 6 or 8 minute blurb that you send them. I don't know how to make one of these. My crack staff does, but I don't. And so we're going to go over that, and we're going to talk about his reporting. And then we're going to talk about ad nauseum, him and several others that are doing deals in the Corona period. I just got several emails come on up, Kim. Several emails overnight and early this morning about the meatheads out there. Thank you. And I won't say we could get these every day, but we get them for sure every week. Every week. And I don't know, I tell them, send me, your horror stories and your successes. I don't want it in the middle. Because I want to be able to express what can go wrong, because it will go wrong. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. And I want to express to you, not so much to the YouTube meatheads, but to you, what can go right and what should go right. And this is let's see. 11 deals done, 40 million volume. I know too small. Working on a 580 million deal in the fatherland. And a $350 million deal in the fatherland. COVID-19 affects real estate. This is a real estate roller-upper. But there are some possibilities in the market. I closed 2 deals. I'm finally in the billions. You hear that what I just said? I am finally in the billions. I am finally in, he should say, the motherfucking billions. To your QLA. Because he's a German. Okay. Another German. The Germans are hot. He's got so many deals listed. He couldn't put them in sentences. Pushed hard. And no matter what you accomplish, it's not good enough. Whereas the bars are so low, have been set so low for you in your lifetime, they pat you on the little head no matter what you do right. Now, for those of you that have kids, well, you probably none of you, except for the old git, might have kids old enough to, before they stopped giving out first, second, and third places, and they just said participation places when you do participate in athletics now. You don't. Our kids were just at the cusp that they stopped athletics when they stopped giving out first places. And now if you get more than 5 ahead in a little league game or 7 ahead, they call the game. Well, back in the old days, they didn't used to do that. You could win 56-2 in a baseball game. And you just pounded the shit out of the little motherfuckers until they cried and shit their pants. But now you don't do that. And I rest my case. I'm not going to go through all these. There's too many. It doesn't mean I don't want you to send them, but I'll read them privately. And then let's see another email. Oh, more. There's so many deals they just list them in chart form now. Another German. The Germans are hot. We're lucky they didn't wake up Hitler. We're lucky they didn't wake up Hitler from his nap, and he would have thrown 75 Panzer divisions down on us and crushed us in Normandy. We're lucky we didn't wake up the little psychopath. Another one. Oh, no, this is from a Sri Lankan. Oh, fuck. Don't even want to read that one. Sri Lankan. 2.1, and I told you about this last night, 2.1 and 3.5 million. And the last one, that's not even worth talking about that one. Don't send me that one. Too small. I don't want to have the kids get the wrong idea. It's easy as taking a dump in the morning. But you won't find it that way. Now, if I was getting ready to sell you onto my premier club, whatever those things are, I'd tell you. But one time and one time only, 20% off. At Valentine's Day and Christmas and Hanukkah, they have sales. All the guys have sales. 50% off. What was it worth the day before the sale? Correct. Yet you still buy it. There are people in this room, I would bet my testicles that you're going to go to other seminars. I'll bet my life. There are people in this room, and for sure on UFUC, that listen to the podcasts and, And now there's other things other than pods. There's other words to describe those things when the guys go on, and almost all of them are in some format that ultimately you can sign up for something because they want to capture your details, your email address, et cetera, et cetera. You can't help yourself. We've had people leave this seminar to go to another seminar in London. Leave this seminar. Because you can't help yourself. And that's why default's a bitch. You're going to hear almost every single person that we're going to listen to the rest of the week, and they'll say it in different ways. Not everybody says default is a bitch. But they do say, going back to your socioeconomic environment that you came from is debilitating vis-a-vis going forward with QLA. Does everybody understand what I just said? Because there are two different ends of the continuum. High performance, super high performance, that you're held accountable to your life that you came from. And we all know that you weren't held accountable. And so default's a bitch. It's a motherfucker, really. It's unbelievable. And that's why I know with my hand, I'm not going to show my heart. I showed my heart last time because we had a picture of it from the MRI. But where my heart's supposed to be, and we got one there. 10 years ago when Sally and I both had this kind of big comprehensive examination thing with all the CAT scans and all that, they lost her brain at UCLA Medical Center. And I made fun of that. I mean, I beat that to death. I paid for it in the long run for beating it to death, but they lost her brain. And then they found it, I don't know, a month later. And this is a proper medical center. It's not some fucking half-ass place. And but this time, they didn't lose anything. And I had more tests, a few more tests than she had. And although your brain shrinks as you get older, which I don't like that. Because even when I was a kid, I had a big head when I was a kid. They used to say, they were saying it in a derogatory manner, he's got the brain as big as a planet. They were making fun of me. But I did have a big head when I was going through the albums that I alluded to yesterday for this newspaper article. And I saw when I'm in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, you can just go, big head. And normally I was almost always the tallest kid, but big head. But as I found out, because one of you crack meatheads brought to my attention when Brian QLA Rose says that I'm a Neanderthal, one of the last Neanderthals on the planet. Neanderthals had a brain 20% bigger than Homo sapien. So even though they're trying to make fun of me, Neanderthals had brains 20% bigger in volume. And I have the Neanderthal 13th rib. My father had the Neanderthal 13th rib. We don't know about his dad because his dad died before he was born. So there is some truth. And I certainly think like a Neanderthal. I would have loved to be in the time, you see a woman just hit the guy in the face, kill him, and drag her off by her hair. And fuck her till she dies. That is in my blood. So, big brain, and my brain is bigger but it's shrunk a little in the which the doctor said that's okay. Just shrunk a little teeny bit, half a centimeter. I didn't like that, but my brain's bigger than it anyway. So, last night you saw Nick. Oh, Stephen. Which I told you I saw him in Bangalore, India, shortly before he announced he had cancer. Dancing on a dance floor by himself. Just, I don't know if he was on something. He looked peaceful, that's for sure. And there's no doubt, this is the second or third movie about Steve that's come out. There's another one coming out. And the longer you're dead, the worse the movies are. Because they feel that there's less likely they're less likely to be sued for slander or whatever. And so this one is kind of a middle of the road. What are your takeaways about Steve's life? Yes, sir, in the back.
He would never take no for an answer.
That's an understatement.
And, if I can make a special note that I'm aware of, when I interviewed for a job at UT Memphis, I was talking with the chairman and said, I'm glad to have the interview here. This is where Steve Jobs had his transplant because he had cancer in his liver. And the chairman shook his head he went everywhere in the country to find a place where he could have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though there is no cure for arthritis, the inflammation, I've gone to at least 100 arthritic centers, full life, every place. Because that's the only thing, the only malady I have is I have arthritis. I don't have the crooked kind of arthritis, but I have arthritis. My dad didn't have arthritis, but I do. And I'm going to live long enough that there's going to be a pill for arthritis, I pray. But they don't take no for an answer. Whereas most, they don't even ask the question. Forget taking no for an answer. They don't ask the question to get a no. And day by day, and when these aren't commendable traits that we describe for the high performance individual, but success leaves clues. Some of you aren't convinced yet, but at least half of you are convinced that this may not be for me. Because you know you're never going to turn into a hard prick. And if you could look at your faces like I'm looking at your faces. So the hope is that, well, maybe enough of this shit can rub off on me that I can still make a lot of money and not change my personality. And that's wrong. And I would be a disingenuous, lying asshole if I told you. That's so wrong on the face of it, it's not possible. It's not possible. And that's why I said yesterday, and Gerard said yesterday, you're chairman, right? Because he's the one, or she, because we have chairpersons, I guess, or whatever the fuck they call them, need to step into the breach. When you're at a meeting, and this is why you don't have board meetings before we're going to do a deal, and we'll talk about that later, and they say, well, it's obvious that Vanessa brings no value here. This is your industry expert. And if it's a Mexican, for sure. Cut your fucking tits off, for sure. She brings no value. And that's when your chairman's supposed to step into the breach and say, if it wasn't for this slag, bitch, we wouldn't be here. So let's move on to the next point on the agenda. That's what they're supposed to do. But they rarely do if you pick the wrong person. And then it's through. Then you might as well. What they're doing is they're wiping their hands like Pontius Pilate did, and you're fucked. And it happens weekly. Even to old gits. And I always get my rocks off when an old git gets thrown out. Because an old git ought to have lived long enough to know he's going to get fucked. But hope springs eternal, kids. And the ones that roll on you are your cousins, your stepfather, your brother. I love when brother turns on brother. I love when daughter turns on mother. I mean, I get an erection. I mean, it's like an orgasm. It's like men are supposedly not be able to have multiple orgasms. But I get a multiple orgasm when that happens, when I see a daughter turn on a mother. I mean, I get off on it. Cain and Abel. I believe Cain and Abel's story now. I didn't used to before I started coaching. I thought that's a load of shit. But I've seen countless Cain and Abels now. Okay, what else about Steve? Yes, sir.
He didn't know anything about coding or programming. He just hired the best and imposed his will onto them. Kind of like what Carnegie did with the engineers as well. Mm-hmm. He just hired the best and did the same.
Say the first sentence you said again, please.
He didn't know anything about...
Stop. Steve didn't know anything about fucking anything. But you want to know the why. All your lives have been spent on the why. And if you look for enough why the why information is, you'll figure out a way not to do it. If a woman knew what it took to have a baby, and the pain, all the bullshit, because when they're talking about their mother's pain, that's a statistic. When you're talking about your pain of birth, that's 100% you. If men had to have babies, we'd have about 40 million people on the planet instead of 7.5 billion. We need to lose people on the planet. I'm not worried about more food. I'm not worried about fucking more clean water. I'm not worried. How do we have less people? This problem is easily solved. Food, yada, yada. We just got too many fucking people. What else about Steve? Yes, sir.
Yeah, he didn't want.
What?
Yeah, he didn't.
He didn't want to recognize his daughter until he figured out that she was Sprite.
Yeah, that's the one.
And was she as bright as him? No. We're not too many on the planet, or as bright as Mr. Jobs was. Although on an IQ basis, he wasn't that fucking, now I have a high IQ, but he wasn't that fucking smart, actually. I personally know 4 or 5 guys that have IQs 30, 40, 50 points higher than his. I'm not one of them, but. What else about Steve? Ma'am, in the back.
He doesn't know how to do coding, but he has the vision. He could see how this could be massive going on the world, that he could make it big.
Remember what Gerard said, you got to have that vision? And when we talk about goals and affirmations and I saw myself living in a castle with a moat around it on an island. Now, we are on an island, not the kind of island I thought. I thought the island was going to be like off the west or west coast of Scotland or someplace. We don't have a moat. And I saw tennis courts, and we've torn our tennis courts down now, but we used to have tennis courts with a golf course. Blah, blah, blah. I saw all this. Long before I fucking was here. And I used to prance around the estate like I thought you could be a gentleman farmer. That's a misnomer. You can't. You're either a farmer or you're a gentleman, one or the other, because pig slop and shit and having calves and pulling calves out of cows, that's a fucking dirty business, believe me. That's if the mama cow doesn't kick you in the fucking head, that's a dirty business. But he had a vision. Yes, ma'am. What else? Yes, sir.
There was a bit where Andy asked him why he is the genius, and his answer was he plays the orchestra and everyone else are the musicians.
Conductor. He was the conductor. And he was. And I said to you the first night, for the first time, you're going to be the conductor and you're going to be in charge of the orchestra. And contrary to what you've been told, and some of you have been taught, that you don't need to know anything about other than 1 or 2 of the instruments in the orchestra. 1 or 2. You don't have to know all the, like you don't have to know, again, 5% of what I know. I got an email about an oil and gas deal. I guess it was early this morning. And I read the first paragraph. And intellectually, I saw all the problems. Because now I know a lot about oil and gas. What I know today in 2020, I wouldn't have done probably half of the deals I did when I made a fortune in oil and gas. Because I wouldn't have attempted them. Because I know where all the boogeymen are. I know where all the shadows are. When I was then, I didn't know shit. I didn't know. When I say I didn't know anything, I mean I didn't know anything. But now I look at, and there's 5,500 wells in the North Sea, figuratively underwater and literally underwater. Because the average cost, more or less, to bring an oil up to the surface of the North Sea, not to get it out, but to the surface, is, 65 pounds a barrel. They call it $75 a barrel. For those of you that follow that market, it's currently selling at about half that. So they're underwater and they're behind in their depths, as you would say. You can buy cheap, but they're like the Corona guys in healthcare. If we keep our head long enough underwater, maybe when we pull our head up, the oil price will go back up again. And I said last night or yesterday afternoon, when you've got roughly 30 million barrels a day production, and that's if Venezuela and everybody doesn't cheat, and you've got only about 20 to 23 million barrels a day of need, I mean, those lines are never going to cross. Not never going to cross. And that's why in 2014, when I called the top of the oil market at $115 a barrel, and I did a rough calculation in my head, not with a spreadsheet, I mean, it'll take 50, 100 years. And I said, well, we got no place to go but south. And guess what happened? The same as I figured out when we went to negative oil. And we had people buying oil, and I've been to Cushing, Oklahoma, where they deliver the wet barrels. I know what it looks like. It looks like about a 1915 cowboy movie. I mean, they're never going to be able, and guess what? Oil went to a negative. But if the government, as they say in this country, told you that, you shit. And that's why, as Jack Nicholson said in that movie, A Few Good Men, whatever the fuck the movie was. Anyway, where he says you can't take the truth, because you can't. If you knew all the truth, the CIA has cleanup crews. So when they whack this little piece of shit, they come and clean it up, and they paint the lines in there. That's true. Every government's got cleanup crews. They have cleanup crews in every major city. They can get to a killing in 30 minutes. But if you really knew that, and it's like in the Will Smith movie Men in Black, when they do, and they put a light in front of your eye, and you forget everything you just saw. Now, I don't think they have, I don't know if they have that. I don't know about that. But if you knew all this shit, as big a wuss as you are, you wouldn't sleep at night. What else about Steve? Yes, sir, in the back.
It was all about Steve. He was selfish, and he channeled his selfishness. There's a line where he says to, I don't remember whom, that he would protect Woz, but when Jobs died, he was worth north of $10, $13 billion, and Woz, I'm not sure, but a couple hundred million.
Yeah.
So protection of someone else was still all about Steve.
One of my mentees, Hall of Fame superstars, is the mentor of Wozniak. The Woz. And when you get the slides, we probably won't go over those slides, but the slides you're going to get are emails and texts from the Woz to this guy. And the bottom line of all the emails, et cetera, is I always wanted to be liked. This is Woz talking. That's the bottom line. Just like you. There's not anybody in the room ever, I won't say ever, we've had a few that this doesn't apply to, that didn't want to be liked at some level. I don't want to be liked at any level. No level. That's why when I see you, all I see is euro signs, pound signs, shekel signs, dollar signs, whatever signs. I don't want to know. I don't want to know you. Everybody that's ever come through the seminar is in one of three files: a pre-litigation file, a litigation file, or a post-litigation file. That's how I file you. I'm ready to go to court with everybody from the day I meet them. That's it. And why don't I ever lose in court? Because I'm ready to go to court from the day I meet you. Litigation is a business tool. One of the most useful things on the website, and it's free, the 29 or 28 rules of litigation. I forget how many, I think I updated it. It used to be 26 for 15 years, Then I sat down with my crack lawyers, and we decided, because the times have changed, there's now 28 or 29 rules of litigation. You follow those rules of litigation, you'll win, even when you shouldn't win. You'll win even when you shouldn't win. Somebody's hand went up. Yes, sir.
When he created that black cube, he named it Next, and right before he was presenting it for the first time, everyone was telling him it's not going to work, and Waz told him it's going to be the worst thing he's ever created. And his attitude was simply, if it crashes next. And that's the same thing. Really all we need to look at is, does cash flow cover debt service?
That before or after he wanted a shirt with a pocket?
That was after.
I did some work in the 80s, but anyway, him trying to throw out programmers out the windows. All true. How's that different than me dropping an aquarium on my grade school teacher? Except for, arguably, Steve was a mature adult when he did it. And there isn't any. Now, for those of you that don't know, the male brain, the frontal lobe, doesn't fully develop. You're 25, 26, 27 years old, and it's fully developed. Women, it's fully developed by the time they're 19, 20, something, 18, 19, 20. So, I mean, the kids that have the most problems with building their boards is because they make bad choices. But when you're 22 or 24 years old, you have no basis to make good choices, and you don't follow the steps. The steps are there so you don't have to go through all the fuckings I went through. But you still don't follow them. And I've already said it, 25 times since you've been here, a day plus? I'll say it at least 100 more times, because you won't do it. I know why our little Vietnamese bitch back here isn't going to follow the steps. I know Miss Farsi isn't going to follow the steps. I know why the Mexican whore queen over here is not going to follow the steps. I know Saddam Jr. here isn't going to. I know why. And we used to teach, I used to single out and tell you why, and it still doesn't make any fucking difference. Because DNA is DNA. Does everybody under fuck DNA understand DNA? You can't help it. Just like the Germans, you can't help it. But you can still make a lot of money. Yes, ma'am. Is this a Vietnamese kind of deal?
Could be.
I like the Harbor City questions better. Go ahead. So my wife was asking me, Harbor City, where's Harbor City? And I told her, down from the hill. But anyway, go ahead.
So the rather to be like, I'm a bit confused on that.
Well, you look confused. You walked in confused, you still look confused.
Can you elaborate it?
Sure. It's easy. I don't dress for you to accept me. This has been my uniform almost 50 years. I don't look like, sound like any of the other, and I don't like to be classified with the other gurus. I don't, because they're not the sweat off my balls. I forgot more with the 2 martinis I had than the entire industry knows cumulatively about making money. I used to have a challenge when I first got started. You find somebody that's created more wealth than I have, I will retire that very moment. I will fly you by private jet to whoever this person is next seminar, and I will get before him and bow on my knees and give him my prospect list, or, a list of customers. I'm still waiting almost 28 years later. So this is me because I don't give a fuck what you think of me. I don't give a fuck what you say about me. Nothing. And I even say, if you like me, I didn't do my fucking job. That is at this end of the continuum. Now we'll go to your end of the continuum. You're a little short Vietnamese Asian woman that has taken shit about being Vietnamese all your life. About being Asian. Gook, slant eye, slope, all the bullshit, right? Filipinos. Is he for real Filipino? Okay, I wanted to double check. You know, we had to get some pretend Filipino. Why anybody would pretend to be a Filipino and come here? I don't understand. I don't. Fuck. Because the Filipinos, unfortunately, are at the lower end. From the Chinese down, they look anyway. So she has got this with not just her generation, her mother's generation, and then of course when you throw the Vietnam War in, Ho Chi fucking Minh City, okay, she's got nothing but an uphill battle all her life. Plus she's a midget, dwarf, whatever, all her life. So by definition, she has tried to overcome all that. Probably some of it on a conscious level, most of it on a subconscious level. It's like blacks. And I've got black friends, the blacks say, they teach their kids, you know, when you get stopped by the cops, you keep your hands on the steering wheel. It's like the commercial they got, my hands are up, why are you pointing a gun at me? I think it's something like that. I didn't go through any of that. But any black guy that's got kids, depending where you live, I mean, you know, you've taught your kids, you know, so you don't want to get shot getting out of a car because he had a speeding ticket. That is inherent in you. So you try to overcome that. It's like when you call somebody on the phone, is this a good time? If you do that to me, I hang up. First of all, I don't take calls. I've got 3 or 4 or 5 people that filter the calls. So by the time you actually hear my voice, somebody's already screened you at least twice. You, on every level of your being, would rather be liked than hated. And that's the difference between Steve Jobs and you, and Dan Peña and you, and Warren Buffett and you. But you can't, if you follow the steps, because the steps, remember what the young kid, the young Middle Eastern kid, the first kid, the high school kid that was saying, he says that if you blank out everything until the next step happens when you finish this step. If you blank all those things out, it differentiates you because you're not interested in the opinions and the filter or the shit or the noise. Now they call it noise that you hear. You're all interested in the noise. I'm not interested in the noise. And most of the time, I know the noise, conventional wisdom is almost always wrong. There was supposed to be a blue wave that took the country. It didn't. It just means that Trump still lost, but I mean, or he's going to lose if he hasn't lost already. I haven't been keeping track. See, I'm not even listening to the news anymore because that's yesterday's news. I don't give a fuck. Because you're inundated with the why. Well, why doesn't he like me? Well, you got no tits, sweetheart. Well, why doesn't he like me? Because you got a flabby ass. So what? The point is he doesn't fucking like you. Don't you get it? You're a bad fuck. It's normally with you, all you want to do is get your willy wet. Any fuck's better than no fuck. And it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. In the 90s, as I said yesterday, the guys had bigger balls. Almost all of them sounded like Gerard. Now, fuck. Hen's teeth. There are no such a thing as hen's teeth. Finding guys like Gerard, even though he quit once, are like finding hen's teeth. They're non-existent. But if you follow the steps, I've said it 7 times this morning. But if you follow the steps, people aren't going to like it, dear. You're going to wish for them to call you a fucking slow-paid fucking Vietnamese piece of shit again. You're going to wish for those days again. Yes, ma'am.
About Steve Jobs. Steve didn't want to listen to any negative thought. He always keep imagining the success moment. That's why I understand.
What else about Steve? Yes, sir.
His desire for revenge was very strong.
By the way, all the guys are vengeful, myself included. And on that happy note, goodbye, YouTube.